Let's talk a little bit about foreign policy.
Okay.
How would you describe the sort of Marianne Williamson foreign policy agenda or theory or vision to the extent that there is a sort of cohesive principle that would bind it together?
Well, John F. Kennedy said we must end war or war will end us. I look at war and peace much the same way I look at sickness and health. Sickness is the absence of health. Health isn't the absence of sickness. And war is the absence of peace. Peace is not the absence of war. So I think we need to wage peace as seriously as we wage war. And as I was mentioning before, there are specific factors involved in waging peace. There are specific things that you can do to increase the incidence of peace. Right now, we have an $858 billion military budget. We have a $60 billion State Department budget. And we have something like $1.9 billion that we give to the USAID. Now, of those three, the USAID arguably does more to create peace in the world because it actually addresses the needs of people. So I would want a foreign policy, first of all, where diplomacy, State Department efforts of diplomacy take far more primacy. They have been sort of cast to the side of the room. It's the opposite of what used to be true. It used to be true that the State Department was at the table and the military guys were sitting in the back of the room. Today, the military people are at the table and the State Department. It used to be that if you were having a foreign policy discussion and somebody said, oh, we can't do that, that we couldn't get that past state, that would be taken very seriously. Today, it's like a joke. People would roll their eyes. Ooh, state's not going to like it.
Mm.
So we have to go in and clean all that up. Now, having said that, I look at the U.S. military like I look at a surgeon. If you have to have surgery, you better believe you want to have the best surgeon. But you're also, any reasonable person would seek to avoid surgery if at all possible. So we have a history of imperialistic misadventures in this country. We know the criminality of the Iraq War, the thousands of people, possibly millions of people, if you count people elsewhere, who have died from Vietnam to Iraq, and certainly the last 20 years or so in Afghanistan. Um, I think America has a lot to atone for. Our imperialism, quite simply. I think that we are needing to turn a corner, and I think there are some people within the defense establishment, or at least the foreign policy establishment, who are trying to do that. Undeniably, however, there is in this town what's called the blob, the
Hmm.
defense establishment, which exerts tremendous, tremendous power. Even though the neoconservative views, the Iraq War, et cetera, had been proven to have been utter failures and utter wrongs, that power is still exerted, and they'd have a problem when it comes to me.
So Bernie made some news recently when, in an interview, he said we should condition aid to Israel now, contingent upon some sort of a peace deal and Palestinians getting human rights. Do you agree with that position that we should condition our aid to Israel? In other words, if they start bombing Gaza or something like that, you have civilian casualties. We go, you know what? Sorry, but those billions we give you, you're not getting them now.
Absolutely, no money should go to Israel that's not specifically for defensive purposes. Absolutely.
What is your view of what's going on in Israel right now? There was just recent news that even Trump's ambassador to Israel, who is famously sort of very pro Israel and very hawkish, was condemning Netanyahu's attacks on the independent judiciary there.
It's
Um, Go ahead.
It's terrible what's happening in Israel. This is the most far-right government that the country has ever seen. The attacks, as you mentioned, on the judiciary there were 100,000 people in the streets in Tel Aviv protesting this. I'm very concerned. When you have someone like Anthony Blinken going over there, and even him saying in public, watch it, baby. I think that means something, and I think that is the appropriate. I'd love to hear President Biden say, "Watch it, BB," and you would certainly hear that from me.
So, when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, this has been a very heated topic for understandable reasons. People point out you have an illegal and offensive invasion against a country that didn't attack Russia. Russia was the aggressor. But then you also have people pointing out, hey, there was NATO sort of built up to Russia's border, and that it served as some semblance of a provocation because they viewed it as aggressive from the West. But putting all that aside, I think the more important question here and the more important point is, as president, would you actually try to get to the negotiation table and try to work diplomacy, because that's actually a controversial position here in this city where we're sitting in DC. Nobody's allowed to say the word negotiation or diplomacy, because then they say, oh, you're appeasing, you're Neville Chamberlain, you know, you can't make a deal with the madman or whatever. Do you think that that's the way to go, negotiation and diplomacy, or should we continue effectively funding the proxy war?
Well, it's a complicated situation, but of course the goal should be negotiation. Of course, the goal should always be negotiation and diplomacy. And General Milley and the Rand Corporation have said that that is the only possibility here. So I think the question is, when can that happen? I think that those are, you know, I've heard so many people on both sides of that topic come to the conclusion that of course you want a negotiated settlement. The only issue is, when is that possible? Some say the United States could come in there right now and say, I want a negotiated settlement. And of course we want a negotiated settlement. The United States should do anything possible to make that happen. I have my questions about whether or not Vladimir Putin would be as open as we might like to such conversation if we were to say it today and couple that with complete withdrawal of our military support. But that absolutely should be the goal, and the analysis should always be, at what point and how can we best exercise our power to influence this situation in such a way that negotiation and diplomacy, in order to save lives, in order to decrease the risk of nuclear encounter, might occur. Absolutely.
What do you make of the reports that early on in the war there was publicly reported there were peace negotiations going on? No one can know exactly whether they would have come to any sort of a deal ultimately, but recently the former Israeli prime minister talked about his involvement in those talks, that there seemed to be concessions being made on both sides, and effectively the West, led by the U.S., said, we don't want this deal right now. You know, and the underlying implication was, Russia's not doing well. We think we can strike a blow against Russia. We actually want this war to continue. You know, what do you make of those reports?
I think those reports are true. They're indisputably true. And we know that Boris Johnson went over and talked to Zelensky. I believe those things. And I also heard that interview with the former Israeli prime minister. It's indisputably true. So the voice of those who would say, let's perpetrate this war, let's keep it going in order to weaken Russia, they would not be in the room with me. They would have no influence on my thinking whatsoever. Those who are concerned about the imperialistic invasion on the part of Putin, despite the imperialism in our own past, who are concerned about the invasion of a sovereign nation and wanting to analyze what this would mean for that entire area, they would have a voice with me. But those who just want to use this as a proxy war to weaken Russia, to me, those are the voices of horror. They have had far too much influence in this. They're no different than those who said, let's invade Iraq, in my mind. And they would have no voice with me. And they probably have their opinions about China, and they'd have no voice with me on their opinions there either.
So the last time you ran for office, there was a period where you weren't in favor of Medicare for all. And then when you dropped out, you endorsed Bernie, and you have pretty clearly had a change of heart where now you wholeheartedly support the idea of Medicare for all. What was it specifically that made you change your mind and realize that this is the way to go?
That I saw that it wasn't as easy as I had thought it was. I thought with Medicare, with Medicaid, I underestimated the administrative difficulties that people go through. I underestimated how much of the insurance people could get was still underinsured. I underestimated how much the system wears people down and leaves people out. I got that wrong. I had it wrong. I mean, it wasn't like I didn't listen to people. I remember speaking to a Medicare for All expert, but I simply had it wrong until I didn't. It was a little bit of one of those Amazing Grace moments. I was blind, and then I saw, and I went, whoa.
So this is probably the most important question to me, because as much as I, love Bernie Sanders with his 2 runs, towards the end of his campaign, I had some very, very strong disagreements with how he was approaching the situation. He dropped out, endorsed Joe Biden. They did this very sad-looking hostage-like phone call where, do you support a $15 minimum wage, Joe? Yeah, Bernie, I support. It was I was watching it, and I was like, oh, okay. It felt gross.
Oh, it was painful.
So here's, let me set up a hypothetical for you, and I'm very curious what your answer is to this. Let's say we're at the end of the summer. The race is over. You made a phenomenal run at it, but you got 42% of the vote and came up just short. Joe Biden calls you, and Joe Biden says, "Hey, Marianne, look, we've said things about each other over this past however long, but I'm an old school politician, and I want to talk to you. I want to have a meeting. Let's talk. Let's make a deal."
Joe was on his good meds that day.
Yes, he was. And so you get into the talk with him, and he very clearly is looking for your endorsement, for you to drop out and to endorse him. Could the American people have your word that in a meeting like that, you will have a list? Here are 5 things, 10 things, all things that you have the authority to do as president of the United States. You don't need Congress. This is all things you could theoretically do through executive order, just like the lowering the prescription drugs like we talked about before. Will you give people your word that you won't just roll over and say, yes, I'll endorse you and I'm not going to ask anything in return? Will it be contingent upon, I'll endorse you, but here's what I'm getting in return for it. And then, by the way, if you don't deliver on that, this is not over. Then I'm going to, publicly crusade against you and remind everybody that you broke your word.
I remind you that I'm not a legislator. I don't have a political career there that I have to worry about going back to. If I got 42% of the vote, you think then I just fold and walk away and not take anything with me after all that I and so many other people would have had to go through to get to 42%? No, I would not. No, I would not walk away easy. And no, absolutely.
So you'd have a list of demands.
I would have a list of demands, and I would
negotiate it.
Well, absolutely, and I would consider all options, actually, and how I thought that I could, with that 42%, make a difference in this country. You better believe it.
What did you learn last time around?
I don't know if it's so much well, certainly I learned a lot about just what it means to run for president. There's no doubt about that. But I think the changes in myself more than anything. I've talked to Nina Turner about this. When you go through a certain kind of acid bath of the hate that people throw at you, the smears, the mischaracterizations, the lies, it gives you some emotional antibodies. There are things that I can ignore now that you say, how could they say that about me? I'm just whatever, that's what they do. And I think learning that's an emotional lesson and psychological lesson in just flying above some of that. I have some things that I believe need to be said. As a writer, I was, from the earliest days of my career, I had read a line by a man named Arnold Patton. He said, if you genuinely have something to say, there is someone out there who genuinely needs to hear it. I'm having a conversation. I'm having a conversation with people who I know agree with me. And I know that there's an ameliorative effect in having this conversation and harnessing for political purposes. I'm doing this. The people who don't like it, who, there's a term, contempt prior to investigation. I know how many people are criticizing my books who never read them, or criticizing my career who know nothing about it, or criticizing me who don't know me. It's one thing to criticize me for things that I might deserve criticism for, but things that what I've learned is ignore. Ignore. I've always thought if somebody criticizes you, the first thing you need to do is ask, is there any truth to it? Even if there's 10%, is there anything to learn from that? But beyond that, in the field of politics, what I've learned is a friend of mine wrote me, it doesn't matter who she is, but she wrote this to me in a text the other day. Keep your eyes on the light of the fire. I want to keep my eyes on what's important. What are the issues we're talking about? What would we do with the presidency? What is the agenda we can offer to the American people? What do people need? What can we discern? How could we provide the help? How could we help transform this government back into the government of the people, by the people, and for the people? What I've learned is to make those issues and those questions, give them the entire landscape of my thinking, and to let the rest go into the mud of low-level energies that they are. The media will do it, whomever will do it, Twitter will do it. What I've learned is to ignore all that. We have important work to do.
And lastly, for me, why will this time be different than last time?
Well, first of all, Bernie was running, and I think that a lot of people who do agree with me were not seeing me understandably, uh, in the sense that they were so supportive of Bernie, but also for reasons that I think many of them now realize was a lot of fairy dust thrown in their eyes about me, who I am, and what I stand for. But also, Krystal, I think the country is different. I think many of the things that I talk about aren't so easily mocked. How are you going to say to people who themselves are dealing with depression, are dealing with anxiety, are dealing with so many internal problems? Let's mock the woman who speaks about those things.
Mm.
I think people have kind of woken up to the idea that it is not woo-woo, kooky, crazy to recognize that the problems of our time will not be solved with thinking that is based on bad ideas left over from the end of the 20th century. Einstein said the problems of the world will not be solved on the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. This is a new century. I see it. Young people get it. It's like it's a whole systems breakdown. We need a whole person response. We have to realize if you don't take care of a child today, you will need more prisons later. If you don't take care of people's needs today, you will have a mental health crisis later. If you don't, as FDR said, provide the blessings of democracy, you will have the threat of authoritarianism later. I think a lot of people are ready to say, she's right. It's not just symptoms. We have to talk about cause. And the people who only want to talk about symptoms want to talk about it because it's a transactional, above-the-neck politics that has no care or concern about human suffering. It's what got us into this mess. It's not what's going to get us out of this mess. And my hope is that they'll give me a listen. And I believe that if they do, and if I do my work well, then we could we could change this country.
So I saw in a previous interview you did, there was like a little bit of like a lightning round portion, and you were asked, hey, if you could only do one policy, you have to pick just one, what would you pick? And you gave a good answer. You said universal health care, Medicare for all. I thought that was a very good answer.
I didn't. It's funny that you say that because I thought about it later, and I thought, nope, I would have said something else, but go on.
Okay.
Well, what would you have said?
Well, the undue influence of money, particularly corporate money, on our political system is the cancer underlying all the other cancers.
That's true.
So if I had that magic wand that I was asked, I would overturn Citizens United.
Yeah. Well, that's an even better answer. And we could talk off air. We could talk about this, but I can explain to you how it's not just Citizens United. It's McCutcheon.
Of course.
It's Buckley versus Leo. There's a whole bunch of those cases. But anyway, that's a very good answer as well. So I wanted to do a quick little lightning round for you. Give me an answer, one word. Got 3 quick questions. Number 1, can you beat Joe Biden?
Yes.
Number 2, can Joe Biden beat Donald Trump again or Ron DeSantis?
No.
Number 3, can you beat Trump or DeSantis?
Absolutely. Let me in there.
I think that's a good note to end on. Marianne Williamson for president. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Thank you.
Tell everybody your Twitter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. You can find me at Marianne 20. No, yeah, Marianne. I don't know if it's Marianne for President 2024, or I'm sure that we've got all the URLs. Try Marianne2024.com.
And what's your Twitter that I can definitely find you there?
Mar Williamson.
There you go.
Marianne2024.com. Let me check.
Well,
that's not it.
Well, it's not yet.
Oh, you didn't type it in yet. You didn't type it in right.
Well, it's not live yet.
Yes, that's true too.
Oh, it's not out yet. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why.
Marianne 2024.
Okay. It looks like it's Marianne 2024. All right. On that note, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's quite something that you're undertaking. And, I never ran for president, but I did run for office. It was a very searing experience. And you've managed to maintain and I mean this in a positive way, your tenderness and your vulnerability and your humanity throughout all of your political activities, which I think is incredibly difficult and incredibly brave. So thank you, Marianne.
The admiration is deeply mutual. Thank you.
If you want to see me and Krystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Krystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.